Hey, everybody, it's Blair here. I hope you all are doing well. I have a fun interview today, or just like a little conversation with Sheri Cifaldi-Morrill of Full Circle Studio. And remind me where you are, Sheri. I know you're
Yeah,
on the East Coast.
well, thanks first of all for having me, Blair. It's always super exciting to chat with other creatives. I am just outside New Haven, Connecticut, so right along Long Island Sound, halfway between New York City and Boston.
Oh, it's so pretty up there. I love Connecticut.
It
Yeah,
is. It's
it is
beautiful.
very pretty. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about Whole Circle Studio, which is your quilting creative business.
Sure. Yeah. So, through and through, I am a designer. I went to school for graphic design, so design has always been central to my world, and is now central to my business. And so, one of the things I do, the majority of what I do, is I design quilts. I design them for making them, but also design them to make quilt patterns so other makers can make their own version. But Whole Circle Studio is a little bit more than that. I also do other things with it usually starts as a quilt design, and then I do other things with them like embroidery kits. And I've licensed a little bit of my work for wearables and have done some products. So it's quilting centric, but not just quilting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's great that you've been able to sort of branch out and try other things too, because that's all part of this fun creative process that we want to keep up.
It is. It keeps it interesting,
I
doesn't it?
know it does. Um, and so how does being in Connecticut or being where you are, how would you say that influences your quilting style? Does it have an influence?
I'm sure it does. I don't know if it's as obvious to me. I mean, most of my quilts do have themes or concepts behind them. I love making quote unquote pretty quilts. But for me, it's sort of the concept and the content behind it that makes it most interesting. And I find that's when my best work comes through. So a lot of them, not all of them, are very nature based. So I'm sure we have a lot of nature here in Connecticut that comes into play. But that's hard to tell. I grew up, I was born here in Connecticut, grew up in Connecticut, went to college here, kind of never left, not on purpose, just it is what it is. My husband grew up here. Um, so I'm sure that there's some influence, but I don't know much other place. I've obviously traveled and visited other places, and those influence me as well. But yeah.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's very subliminal, and I know that when I moved to New Mexico, uh, I was sort of under the impression, maybe without even realizing it, that so many people talk about their influences of the surroundings here in New Mexico, and that influences their work. And what I realized personally is that I think that it's not so much the surroundings and where I live that influence me as much as it is my quilts in contrast with all of that. Like it almost, like I almost get like I like the juxtaposition. Like I'm looking at nature and my surroundings and observing all of that, but not necessarily putting it in my quilts in a conscious way, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, that
But
totally makes sense. And for
yeah,
me, I kind of just pick concepts and content that I really like, and that's when my best work comes through. And if I like it, then
exactly.
there's probably other people out there that like it as well.
Right. Well, and you have that beautiful quilt that you're working on. Is it a block of the month that you're
Yeah, so
working on right
that's
now?
it's funny because that is so that is the block of the month for what year are we? 2023. I'm
Trying.
like now working on 2024, so I get the two, but yes,
Yeah.
we're working on it, and there's still some blocks I'm making. But yeah, that is Shoreline Shells, and it's the block of the month that I'm hosting this year. But people can it's a uh, so on your own, so anyone can jump in at any time, even in the
Hmm.
future. All of the videos are pre-recorded and everything. But yeah, that was really inspired by I Love the Beach. I think that's part of the reasons why I still am here in Connecticut while we don't have gorgeous beaches here because it's Long Island Sound and it's a little bit rocky. We're very close to New Jersey and Cape Cod, which has gorgeous beaches. And
Yeah.
yeah, as I was just sketching and doodling early last year, I was like, I really love the beach and I love collecting seashells, and they're all around my house. So
Right.
that is
I'm
where
feeling
that.
the seashells. Yeah, yeah. I love that. And they're almost like the color of beach glass too, in the one that
Mhm.
you have behind you.
Which is
Um,
another thing that I collect. So again, I
yeah,
think inspiration just kind of comes from things that I'm inspired by and what I
yeah.
see in my life.
I know it's so interesting how I think as we start to infuse our days with this business that we do with like creativity and thinking about things, I think that without even realizing it, all of this stuff just kind of comes through color or through shapes or things like that. And I like that sort of organic process of just like it comes up and we just go with it, and we may not even realize, where the original idea came from, but
Mhm.
it feels right. So I love that. Yeah. And I
Yeah,
do think when we do our best work is when it's something that we feel really excited about.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, which sometimes is the frustrating part, that sometimes we need time to simmer on ideas. Like it's interesting, there was probably like most other people, like 2021, I was feeling pretty burnt out. And it's hard to be burnt out in general, but it's also really hard to be burnt out when you're trying to run a creative business. And
Yes.
no, and I'm working now on things that won't be out until next year and maybe even the following year. Luckily, it is cyclical and creativity
Yeah.
does come back, but it's really frustrating, right? And so
Yeah.
during that 2021 time, I was still, you do what you can, you sketch and you make pieces and it eventually comes through. But it was interesting after that period, I was trying to clean up this room and going through like um, drawers and stuff. And I came across a sketch of something. And it must have been, again, this back to this subliminal thing I was thinking of, and I had sketched really quickly. Like, I think it was like one step up from a napkin sketch years and years earlier. And I'm like, whoa, this is weird. I forgot about this, but this was something I've been thinking about. And it was sort of on the tail end of coming out of that creative block. So there's sometimes this subliminal stuff or letting things simmer, while it's sometimes like I'm
Yeah.
patient with others but impatient with myself. Is we got to kind of
Same.
remember that, yeah, that
Yeah.
things that
Same.
are tucked away in
Yeah.
drawers, there will be a
Yeah.
time and a place for it.
Exactly. Exactly. I
Yeah.
talk about like letting quilt blocks just sit on the wall overnight and think about it. But yeah, like you, I feel this compulsion to continue creating things. And I wrote about this in one of my emails that I sent to my list not too long ago about how it feels like July and August, there's like a period there where I just can't really get inspired to do anything creative in the studio. And I just beat myself up about it. I feel so bad about it. And so this was the year I realized, why don't we just, this is clearly a pattern that's happening every year. So why don't I just go with it and not like feel guilty about it and just enjoy, like plan it as little downtime and then just enjoy it and just not stress, because it always comes back. Like you said, it's cyclical.
Yeah,
It always comes back, and it's, yeah, it's, I think that we sometimes panic. We're like, it's gone.
I'll never have a great idea again. Oh,
I'll
I say that
never
all the time to my husband, and he's like, Sheri, you will, it will be fine.
calm down.
So
I
I
know.
have to ask, how did that strategy work out for you this summer?
It was a little better.
Okay.
I because the main thing is if I'm not going to do any work for like a 4 or 6 week period, or not do a full schedule of work, I
Mhm.
want to kind of plan ahead for that going forward. But
Mhm.
I also, like I said, I don't want to just beat myself up for not doing it.
Yeah.
And so the first step is admitting you have a problem, right? So I admitted it this year. So it was a little better. And I do this wonderful studio retreat in Taos at the end of August every year. And that seems to mark a shift in my thinking. So I just need to go with these feelings and maybe in addition to that, plan ahead a little bit more.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel that way in the summer? Do you feel like a lag?
So it's definitely a quieter time for my business because people generally, people are still obviously quilting and making. So I do have a little bit of more permission, I feel like. I think, yeah, more so since the pandemic started, and I've been giving myself permission to take not just like one vacation, but to go a little bit easier. This summer, I was a little we had planned out. I actually planned out to visit friends. It just worked that way, or go away 1 week a month, which was really nice. Um, so yeah, it's a little bit quieter. It is. It's a weird. The summer is a weird time. It's like one of my
It
favorite times.
is.
I'm a little sad. Say that like summer is the official summer is coming to the close. So my mood this weekend was a little like, oh man, it's gonna.
I
Although it's
know.
90 degrees here in Connecticut in early September right now when we're recording this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do try to give myself permission a little bit more to just kind of play or to just be making other things and not worry about it.
Yeah.
Try to balance that with the things that I know I have to do to keep the wheels on the bus and keep things moving.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I'm curious, do you have a favorite time of day that you like to quilt? Or if you could sort of pace your day to your ideal creative moments, would you say you
Yeah.
have a favorite time of day?
It's changed over the years. I will say I used to be a night owl, and that's when I would do a lot of my excuse me, sewing and quilting. Um, I do find, and this is a habit I'd like to change. I know some people will start their day with like 15 minutes or an hour of sewing, and I've tried to do that, and I just haven't been that great at it, kind of in my mind. And I think it's just my personality. Like, I want to get all the unfun stuff out of the way. Like, not that
Oh,
it's
that makes
unfun,
sense.
but the emails and the computer, the non. And then, but the problem is things wind up taking longer or other things start to pop up. So, and it's just the nature of it. I feel very fortunate for what it means. I'm not complaining at all, but it's always amazing having sort of a sewing or a quilting creative business and how little sometimes once you
I
talk to people
know.
I know I'm not the only one. So my latest cycle has been like kind of switching over in the late afternoon or even evenings. Like one of my things is, and I'll just admit it, I love trashy TV, but I don't watch
Me
trashy TV. Oh,
too.
good, because very few people will admit that.
I
Um,
love
and-
it.
but I won't watch it unless I'm doing something. So sometimes that means doing, hand piecing or embroidery on the couch. But most of the time, I will spend. I'll be sewing or quilting up here while streaming something, and then some days my husband will grab the chair and kind of watch with me, and he'll be watching while I'm kind of watching and sewing along. So most of that happens in the evenings and on the weekends. Actually, I do a lot of
Yeah.
sewing and quilting. It's still
Yeah.
really therapeutic for me, even having it as a business. I know some people, once you start
Exactly.
doing it professionally, it doesn't become as much fun, but it still is. That's sort of my form of meditation.
I feel the same way. I have not found having a business around quilting has made me love it any less, I
Yeah.
think. And I think for me, there's so many different parts to making a quilt. Each part sort of interests me in a different way. Like you said, it's like at night, maybe if I'm doing embroidery or something, and I, like you, justify watching trashy TV by having something that I can work on. So we'll have to compare shows. Yeah. But
Okay.
I really enjoy, like, if I sit down at night to watch anything, if I don't have something to work on, I just feel like that's time wasted. And it's just a habit that I've gotten into. And I figure I have plenty of bad habits. That feels like a fairly productive good habit. So I'm just gonna go with that. Yeah.
With you.
Yeah.
I
It's
know if
not
I
too
don't have something in my hands and I'm watching television, I wind up then picking up my phone and then I'm like, what am I doing? I'm now like
I
scrolling
know.
through Instagram and watching TV, but at least if I'm doing something, yeah, it's a weird thing.
I know, I know. Well, and when I was in Taos, every Monday I have my phone set to uh, alert me to how much time I spent on my phone the week before.
Braver than I. I don't know if I
It's
want to
it's
know.
it can be very brutal. Yeah, it can be very brutal. But like for instance, last week when I was in Taos, my phone usage was down 20% to usual, which I'm surprised that it was only 20% because if the internet's bad where we are here right now, the internet's just really
Mhm.
bad where I am in Taos. And so I use that as an excuse to not get on my phone and just to even at night when I'm like scrolling, sitting in bed before bed, I can't do that because there's not enough internet
Yeah.
in Taos. So yeah, but yeah, we need to like do stuff that doesn't. Well, and they talk about how doing things with your hands, like it does relax you and it can like sort of, I talk about chicken scratch embroidery. It's such a rhythmic thing
Mhm.
that it really slows your breathing down. Um, and it just sort of, you don't have to count it. You mark a couple of little dots and then you're ready to go. And it's also what I like about that is that it's large enough. My eyes don't like night sewing the way that they used to. So I have some supplemental lighting, but sometimes I don't even need it with the chicken scratch. So it just helps. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
we
no,
can hear what's going on with the trashy TV without having to look up.
exactly. Exactly. I wind up having to make it a little louder just so I could focus on it. But
Right.
yeah, I think your point about the meditative and just kind of slowing things down, like I will fly and I fly, but it's not my most favorite thing to do, especially when there's turbulence. And yeah, I always make sure I have some sort of handwork project that I don't have to
Yeah.
give a lot of thought to, just so I'm not focusing. And
Right.
I find that that really helps. It just kind of takes my mind off
Yeah.
of it, which I'm sure
Well,
there's other
and
too feel
in
that way.
your block of the month, is that applique,
It's
Sheri?
not. It looks like it's
Okay.
actually all
It
foundation
does.
paper piece.
Oh, wow.
And
That's so cool.
yeah, the interesting thing is, and I have some close-ups on my website, um, that when you take like, and it's I guess kind of obvious, but when you take a couple of straight lines and just angle them a little bit, it looks like a curve. So it kind of tricks your
Wow.
eye. I do love applique, but I don't do it that much. I do a lot of the patterns that I offer are machine pieced only because it's a little bit quicker to make samples. Again, anything
Right.
handwork takes a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all foundation paper pieced.
That's incredible because every single shell has all these curves on it. That's
Yeah, it's all
incredible.
straight lines. It's hard to, it can be hard to get it off the wall, otherwise I'd hold it up, but I can always take I can always give you some photos or share my screen and show some kind
Yeah.
of steps of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great. Um, so I'm curious, since you've started your business and, having this business makes us more intentional about all the quilting that we do. Do you feel like your quilting style has changed or evolved from where you started?
Um, to change or evolve, I think yes, but I'm trying to articulate how. I think just as a person, we all like kind of evolve and change over time. I do a lot of different techniques, as we said. I love machine piecing, but I also love hand piecing. I think, I've been able to kind of, as an example, like test the boundaries for how I machine piece things and figuring out, which again isn't a huge secret, but like kind of playing with how things come together. I love to kind of break down steps, making something look like most people look at that, I'm like, wow, that's really complicated. And yes, it takes time, but with a little bit of practice, it's the same steps over and over
Yeah.
again. So I feel like kind of pushing myself to really what I can design within certain techniques, it has evolved. Uh,
Yeah.
I'll say most of the quilting that I do now are for like quilt samples or relate to something that I'm offering to other quilters. However, this was, I think, also part of the burnout in 2021 that I didn't really have time to make any personal work. And so My big goal I started last year in 2022 was to create at least 2 personal quilts a year that were just for myself, that they weren't quilt patterns. Maybe one day they would turn into it, but that wasn't the intention. I was successful in 2022. 2023, I'm almost done with one. It's going to be a challenge to get that second one in, but maybe I've been thinking about that lately. How do I reach that goal? Maybe it'll be just a tiny, tiny project. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so in that way, I guess it's kind of evolved of really figuring out, like I said, sort of the technical part of it.
Hmm.
And I think also trying to find some more time for that personal work as well, and allowing that to kind of simmer and grow.
Yeah. I think that personal work is so important. And, like for example, we moved some furniture around in our living room,
Mm.
and I was on my iPad looking for pillows, and I was like, wait a minute, I can make a pillow. Wait a minute. And then I would say to myself, like there's one shoulder saying, you don't have time to make a pillow. And then I'm like, but why not?
And wouldn't it be fun too?
And
Yeah.
wouldn't it be fun? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, realizing that sort of thing. So, and do you have a favorite quilt that you've made?
Oh, that is like the most difficult question
I
ever.
know.
It's usually, it really is like I mean, there's probably a handful of quilts I've made, and actually, it was interesting. About a year and a half ago, I did in a spreadsheet a whole inventory of every quilt I made, and it took about four
Yeah.
months to do. I didn't do it
Oh my
continuously,
gosh.
and I realized I've made over at this point it'll be over 200 quilts. Some of them are small, some of them are big. I've been quilting for about 10 years now. And I'd say only a handful, less than a handful, are ones that are like, I don't really like that much. But the others, it's really hard because I get asked this a lot. It's hard to pick a
Yeah.
favorite. And it really is usually what I'm working on next because I'm like, it's the most like exciting. I'm like, ooh, this is brand new. So if I had to pick one, if you were making me pick one right now, it's the quilt that I'm working on for the block of the month for next year. I'm very
Oh,
close to
okay.
samples done, and I'm really excited about it. It's pretty cool.
Oh,
I
that's great. So when do you release that? The end
Yeah,
of this year? Or?
so I'll start previewing it in October, November, and then we do some early bird registration late November and December, and then the first block will be released in January, and it's a
Okay.
12 um, block of the 12-month block of the month, so it lasts the whole year.
Okay.
But I do additional videos and all of that, and people can kind of jump in at any time. The big thing that I always like to stress with any project is like people, I think the blocks of the month are great because for those who want accountability, it's really great
It
accountability.
is good for that.
Accountability buddy, and okay, if you make the block, which is doable in 1 month, by the end of the year, you'll have a quilt top. But then
Yeah.
I always like want to also stress with any quilting project, people, I think sometimes, myself included, we put this pressure like, oh my God, I'm so behind. It's like, no, you're right where you should be. It's
I
not a
know.
job. It should be
Yeah.
fun. Life happens and all of that. So I always try to stress with that just let it be what it's going to be. It's okay.
Yeah.
It'll always be there for you to come back to.
Yeah. It's a hobby.
Yeah.
We should have fun with it. We should not stress about it. Yeah. Um, and so you've got the block of the month coming for 2024. I can't believe it's already
I
2024.
know that's the thing is I keep
Almost.
years.
I know. I had somebody contact me the other day about speaking in 2025, and I was like, "Oh," they were
I
like, "Are you
know.
available?" I'm like,
I don't know.
um, I'm like, as of right this second, I guess. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. No,
So
I'm the
yeah,
same way.
but that's just, that's the nature of what we do. We work ahead, and when
Mhm.
we don't work ahead, it can be a little stressful. So you've got the block of the month coming that we will look for the unveiling of. And what other things are you doing? Are you teaching workshops online? Are you teaching in
Yeah.
person?
So I do a little bit of both. I mostly, before the pandemic, I was traveling a lot. Um,
Hmm.
I know that you can relate. It's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work schlepping around suitcases and
Quilts are
traveling,
heavy.
schooling, and all of it. So I am doing a little bit of in person. I cut back that part of my schedule, but have been doing a little bit of that. I've been doing online as well through Zoom. I've been thinking about for a while some on-demand classes, so that might be something that comes into play in
Mm-hmm.
2024. Always looking at releasing new patterns. I release a few a year, so I'll have a new one coming out this year and some that are working out for next year, and then some different type of products that are interesting to quilters, along with the embroidery kits, which has been really fun, taking some of the my most popular quilt designs, like the bees in a circle. Actually, I have one right here. A bees in a circle, knowing that not everyone quilts, but some people are also looking for other types of portable projects. It needs to be tightened a little bit, but this is one of the
Oh,
little
that's so cute.
embroidery kits.
I love
Sorry,
that.
reverse. So I'm working, I have some of those that I launched this summer, working on some new ones. And
And you
then I'm
sell the full kit, Sheri? Is it the full
yeah,
kit?
so
Okay.
everything you need to make that is in there. The hoop, the floss, the fabric with the pre-printing on it, so you don't have to
Okay.
transfer, a needle. Like literally all you need is like a little pair of
Everything.
scissors. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
And then just gearing up. So it's, the kind of getting back out there along with the lines of teaching. I'm going to have a booth for the first time at QuiltCon 2024, which I'm super excited.
Exciting.
Yeah, I've taught there
Yeah.
before, and I've had booths at other places, but never at QuiltCon. And I'm just
Yeah.
most excited because it's a great opportunity just to connect with people I haven't
Yeah.
seen in a while. I have like a home base, so you go to these things, you're like, oh hey, like oh cool, I'll be able to see everyone because everyone will be walking by, and also
That's
meet new
true.
friends too, meet new
Yeah.
people. Yeah, so
Yeah. Well,
that's a lot in the works for this fall.
I'll see you at QuiltCon because I'm just going to go and walk the show. I'm not going to
Yeah.
teach because I feel like the years that I teach, even though I love connecting in the classroom that way, I feel like I don't get to see anybody. So I'll see you.
Yeah,
I'll actually see you.
that happened to me in 2020. And then I went this year and just walked the floor. And I love both. I love teaching
Yeah.
there, but it's a lot. You don't get to see, you don't get to
Right.
see friends and see the quilt. I saw no quilts that year. And this
Yeah.
year I walked and I was like, oh my God, it was so fun running into people and seeing the
Yeah.
quilts and all of that. So
Yeah. It's true. It's true. Well, thank you so much. This was so fun. We will put Sheri's links to her website, to all of the really cool things that she carries in her quilt patterns and all of that. We'll put that in the description box below the video. But I encourage you to check out her block of the month. Her quilts are just like delightfully modern, in my opinion. So I think it's just a really fun um, alternative to if you follow my quilting. Sheri's quilts are completely different, super pretty and interesting with different techniques. So I encourage you to check her out. Thank you so much, Sheri.
thanks so much for having me, Blair.
Yeah, take care.
Thanks.
Hi, Quilt